felt like we had quite a tortuous route through planning. It took us, I think if I'm right, and I put the notes down here, it took us from early December 2008 until almost May 2009. Planning costs alone would have exceeded £150,000. And we had some interesting things. I mean, I was talking to, we've got one of our planning consultants in the room today. We got £11,000 alone for having to dig up an old airfield that had probably been dug up 10 times before to do archaeological surveys. And then we had to go back and do a few more. So a little frustrating, put us under a lot of pressure, but you know, we had a vision that we you know, to push on. We were lucky, we had no receptors, we had no private houses in, I think it was about 1,200 metres. There are 20-week decision time. And probably the difficult thing for us, after 20 weeks in doing an EIA and actually having no real objections from people like the EA, Natural England, we went to committee with the recommendation of planning for refusal, which was a little bit stressful at the time. I have to say, a successful planning meeting. We had that overturned in committee to a unanimous 15-0 vote by the Development Committee to accept it. But that shows the disparity of the route we went through. We went through 20 weeks and £150,000 to sit with a recommendation for refusal, to have it overturned. You know, a bit of a roller coaster for emotion for us. So planning was obtained in April 2009. We actually got planning, and I'm probably masquerading a bit here, I am here as the small plant, but we actually got planning permission for a 2 megawatt, 40,000 tonne site. But we are starting at a smaller scale. So we got our planning permission. The next part of our journey was, that's just a very quick view of the planning application and the bits and pieces, just a slight technical drawing, was the electrical connection. Electrical connection for us, being it was an old operational American Air Force site, it had a well-reinforced 33 kV feed coming into it. So this part of our position was lucky. We were actually able to get a and we knew we had a peripheral offer of a 2.4 megawatt export without having to do infrastructure reinforcement. The challenge for that, and many people here will know, is obviously you're on a 3-month question and answer with the service providers. So you have to make sure you ask the right question, because you won't get the answer for 3 months. So if you ask the wrong question and want to ask another one, you've got another 3 months before you get the answer. So you have to be well advised and ask the correct questions. You also have a big job in making sure you tie together the timing of an offer for export and the fact that when you have an offer for export, you're at the front of the queue and you have a time limit. When the time limit gets to the end of the time limit, you either have to pay a non-contestable fee, and that for us was £98,000, or you go back into offer, which means you're no longer front of the queue. We got our timing slightly wrong. We did have our planning permission, we had our offer, but because of political change to do with feed-in tariffs and to do with some grant positions, we hadn't kicked the project off when we got to final offer date from EDF. And so we ended up having to expose our business to £98,000 worth of non-returnable investment in locking up our export before we'd started our actual journey into building the plant. So again, a little bit risky, a little bit stressful, in that, you know, we were still following the right line, but the timings kept falling out of bed with each other. Building finance has asked to talk about, well, this ties in with electricity a little bit. We'd built our project on 3 main legs of finance, which was our owners and shareholders equity, an RDA grant, and bank finance. Now, one of the difficulties we've gone through is that this was all set in the middle of 2009. So there was a debt consultation that was released for the feed-in tariffs, which most of you here will probably know about, with some advised rates in. We built a business model off of this, supported very, very well by the RDPE. We put a good business plan together, and we actually got a bank position that would have given us a bit of bank funding against our own equity. So we have a late release of the debt consultation and the feed-in tariffs, which should, I believe, have been out in December 2009. They appear in very early February 2010, with a dramatic change in the tariffs for AD and electrical output. So that's the first thing we have to get over. We then, a few days later, get informed that there is no ruling on the compatibility of RDA funding and feed-in tariffs. Not yes, not no. So we then have to go into a prolonged information gathering exercise, because nobody could get any information, or nobody could find out who's responsible for making sure, or what the lack of compatibility was. To cut a long story short, we got there in about, I think, July 2010, to find that the Ofgem ruling, it was finally released, was there wasn't a compatibility for RDP funding and the core production of AD. So we get to middle of 2010. In February, we'd had our financial plan shot to bits. By the middle of 2010, we actually have the grant funding one rug pulled out from underneath us, and I think we were feeling a little bit sort of unloved at that point, which is last summer, and feeling that, well, we were getting to the point where it was really watershed for us. We were either going to be a lot more bullheaded and push forward, or we're going to chuck it in the bin. And we got that close. We got as close as a board meeting saying, do we go forward or do we not? We decided that we've gone so far, and that the principle of the resilience of our farming operation and the belief that we would be producing more in 10 years if we used a small amount of our land for energy and recycling of nutrients and carbon was fundamentally right, and that we wouldn't be put off by what we felt was an inconsistency of decision making that was coming through. So we went back to the planning board. We sliced our project into quarters. So we basically redesigned our plant to be modular, and so that we could actually build a 500 kilowatt start, but then we could actually add to that start exactly in the format that we were going to want to end up at 2 megawatts. We felt that with our own funding, we could just about carry that off. We also looked into other financial positions and have actually set up an EIS business, because we had a shareholding position that could live with it, to help us in there as well, and push forward. So from that point, what we've basically is fundamentally done is that we're building the first plant very close with 100% of our own equity. And then look for bank funding to expand it. A little bit of advertising. I mean, we have had a bank alongside us all the time. They're not completely unsupportive. They are quite supportive in the, I would say, in the arena of limited confidence that they can have with the industry. So HSBC have been very good at sitting alongside us all the way through. So we put the diggers in last week. We're going to push forward to be hopefully operational by late August if everything goes well. We're then going to give ourselves a bit of time to actually look at how we move forward. Just because what I actually did then is I said, we looked at aggregate and said, well, what can it deliver if we push it on now? Well, I started by saying 11.9p for electricity. Well, we've got localised electricity production if we put our 500 kilowatt in. We have hedged our energy position on our storage. We are looking with, and hopefully with the help of the RDPE, is we do operate lorries. We do deliver a lot of our own produce. We have found a relatively straightforward biomethane cleaning system, which is not the complication of the gas grid ones, because they have to be highly efficient. Because we can run it as part of a CHP unit, we can actually find a simpler technology to allow us to trial using biomethane in our lorries, which we think is vital. Obviously, I talked about CHP use for onion stores. We also believe that if we end up moving towards hydrogen, methane is actually a reasonable something to have around you. And again, we're passionate about recycling nutrients. We're passionate about our long-term carbon in our land, and we're not going to let it go. So I think that covers off those ones. As I said, future renewable heat incentives, they've come off. I just put a quick one today that will probably shock people. This is our simplified view of capital costs. And again, the crazy factor that we're building 500 kilowatts, £6,000 a kilowatt on the ground. A megawatt would have probably cost us £4,000 a kilowatt. 2 megawatts would have cost us £3,000 a megawatt. We're caught in this crazy line of inefficiency, but the modular build hopefully retains some of that advantage for the back end for us.